Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Sprinklebeard, and today we are going to be talking about some super endgame gear nonsense. I've put out a few gear videos and nothing specifically targeted towards the super late endgame. And to be honest with you, it is subject material that I should touch on. I am primarily focused on new player and free-to-play focus, but this is kind of a resource management thing. Now, on my personal account here, we can kind of get away with the concept of, oh, I clearly have tons of gold right now, and I have tons of energy that I can just go and farm more gold from. The truth of the matter is, when you get to gear raids 19, like any of the gear raids 19, I feel like it is significantly easier for you to just kind of sell everything. You don't need every piece of gear. And what's fantastic is for every piece of gear you sell, it is like 6,600 gold. So it's a nice chunk of cash that also heavily offsets whatever you buy in here. There's never a moment now where I'm like, oh, this 5,000 is a pain in the butt for me. You know, this effectively, for me to buy all this food, is like 2 runs of a gear raid 19. Oh, look, here's stamina anyways. But even like certain things like this, 18,000, that would be 3 gear raids for me to buy. That's kind of a drop in the bucket for how much gold I have. I understand that not every player is going to have this, but I do want to touch on some topics that I think should help players become a little bit more focused on how they're gearing up their champions. So this video is going to kind of include the following: a game plan of how you want to farm for gear on your account. Secondly, what pieces do I want to keep when I feel like I'm transitioning into the late game, right? Let's say I want to leave mid game. Let's say I've stopped getting yellow pieces and I'm feeling overwhelmed by red. So we're going to touch on that kind of lightly. I have a good thought process, but it's going to be very profile dependent, but the thought process should get you there. And then lastly, how to not save too much of something. And we're going to go into that right away. So first things first, what do I mean by I don't want to save too much pieces of something? So here, I want to re-gear up my broke here. Something I've realized is that as I'm farming a lot of gear for my champions, I'm noticing myself saying, oh, this gear would be really, really good on a defensive champion. And I have a defensive champion that I haven't re-geared since I built him up. Like, I built him up, gave him a whole bunch of gear, and then I've ignored him since then. Well, this kind of doesn't make sense, right? That, let's say I want to look at gear that is just HP, defense, defense, and I'm talking about just weapons. So here on the left, if I look, I have, so that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16 pieces of gear. I should not have 16 pieces of gear for this. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of these 2. Because I know when it comes to my tank, right now, I don't have a tank that I want HP, defense, and attack speed on. It's just, nope, just absolutely not. So this is also a very good example because do I even have 16 tanks? Right? Like, so if I want to go and gear up my broke here, do I have 16 tanks on my account? No, right? I have like 3 to 4 up here that I'm actively using. Maybe. So I have like 4 that I'm actively using. So I'm using like Broke here, Olog, Baron, and Livian. Those are the tanks I'm actively using. Isolde, I do use her for a Lord bonus, so I'm going to say 5. And then Azure is somebody who I like and I want to mess around with. And now that I have Regulus, I do like Regulus for guild versus guild. So now I do have, let's say 6, right? But if I'm saying that I have 6 tanks on my account that I want to build up, well then, why do I have so many pieces? This is a very great question to have for your own account, right? So if you're the type like me where you like to hoard a whole bunch of stuff, definitely consider how we started off this video, where I had 2 gear sets where the gear bonus doesn't make sense for the set that I'm keeping it for. So the crit damage sword that I threw away, it had no crit rate on it. So clearly I'm not trying to build like a Zor, a defense-based damage dealer, where I might want crit rate, crit damage, defense percentage, and HP on. That would be fine if I'm building him as a damage dealer. And I do have plans to do that on my account. But when it comes to like Brokir, I don't ever think I'm ever going to notice or care about Brokir's damage. I want Brokir to survive, and more specifically, I want him to freeze things. And for me to get him to freeze more things, I just need him alive. So what we're going to focus on today is that there's a Tales of the Smith going on, and I have 0 points for it. Typically, this is the best time for us to upgrade gear, and more specifically, after we hit those max points, we have less of an incentive to upgrade our gear. There's still reasons you're going to upgrade gear, or if you're trying to hit a new power spike, so I want to push Dragon today. We are going to be focused on some of our damage gear as well in today's video. But something that I was talking to my guild leader about last night, because he and I are both hoarders when it comes to gear. Something I realized is I save so much gear. All of this gear is identical. All of this gear that you were seeing here is HP, HP, defense, defense, which I love. I can make a whole bunch of tanks with great gear. So at bare minimum, I should be upgrading 5 weapons and just slapping them on my 5 tanks, right? That way, cool. My 5 tanks, I don't have to switch gear between them. All of them should be good. Now, what I was talking to my guild leader about was, on the right here, we see the current piece of equipment that I have selected. Yes, Cobb, I can absolutely look. Let me finish the video if you don't mind. If you need to peace out, let me know, and I'll glance and give you a quick answer without much thought behind it. So on the right here, I have a life force set, and the whole reason I kept this was there was a good roll in the HP bonus, good roll in the defense bonus, and then specifically I wanted attack speed on tanks, because right now I understand that the faster my tanks are attacking, they're building up rage faster and getting to their ultimate faster. So I am liking attack speed on tanks, or certain tanks like Livian. The more times that they attack, the more chances you have to like stun targets and whatnot. So there is a reason for attack speed on tanks. There is a reason that we want to see HP bonus, defense bonus, and attack speed. I was talking to my guild leader last night about this, and something that he was saying to stretch his Tales of the Smith points, and this is something I actively don't do. He upgrades gear, and if he's not rolling purples or not rolling good. So this crit rate, it rolling at 8%, even though I'm not counting on the crit rate for this gear, it is kind of a pain point, right? That this gear has already rolled something low. So even if these other 3 rolls were like near perfect, right? Let's say they were all purples and yellows, which highly unlikely if the first one rolled poorly. This is a good example of this would be a very hard piece of gear to keep with one of the rolls being so low. And this is also probably a reason that my Brokir isn't tanking the way that I want to. So we are going to fix that today. Now what I'm going to look for first is this. I want my most important stats. I want to roll them up first. So I'm going to roll this up to 4. And a perfect example is if I get a low roll in this HP bonus, I know this is not gear I'm going to want to pass on, right? So 13.5. This is at the bottom of the barrel for me. This is where I'm like, I could be okay with that, right? Because I'm losing 7.5% HP. But I absolutely don't love that. So I'm going to skip on to other piece of equipment first. And ideally, what I'm really hoping to do with Brokir today, I do want to try to upgrade him from this Life Force to the Immortal Warrior so that he really gets the biggest bang for buck out of his gear. But this is 2 for 2. At this point, it is very confident for me to say I could just sell both of these pieces of gear, and this opens up 2 more slots for me. And I'm only getting 4 points, so I'm not going to really, like, I'm not losing money, and I'm not really hurting for my Tales of the Smith either. Now, these other pieces are a little bit more complicated, because I do have to roll more to find out. And ideally, seeing this flat HP and flat defense, I don't love it because, in a sense, I don't care nearly as much about these two stats as I do these, right? So if both of these rolled purple, but then this rolls a 3.5, I've wasted a lot of gold. So what I'm going to do is skip over them for now, and we're going to look for more HP bonus and defense bonus. And right now, I'm heavily focused on my HP bonus for my champions. For my tanks specifically. My goal today is I want to try to roll up about 2 tanks with better gear. So this rolled really well. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it up to 8. That's also because this is defense bonus. If this rolled really poorly, I would know not to roll it up potentially anymore. But this purple roll is good. This roll is okay. I'm going to go ahead and chance this one. I know that this is probably not necessarily the best decision, but I like these 2 really good rolls on it. So this is already like a piece of gear that I'm interested in. So this rolled well. I could have rolled it up to 12 and then potentially reevaluated, because if the HP was like, you know, way down here, I might have not rolled it up all the way. But this at least is a huge upgrade compared to these stats, right? So my defense bonus is going to go up by 5%. I'm going to get an extra like 2k HP from here, and then an extra 105 defense. I do lose the crit rate. Again, I don't care on Brokir's crit rate in the slightest. So here my BP goes down slightly, but again, that's not necessarily like effective BP. That is the game telling me, oh, you lost crit rate, and we care a whole lot about that. So I could look through the rest of this gear and say, okay, what other piece of gear do I want to work on? Or same thing too, maybe if I cared more about defense percentage, Brokir does have an enormously high defense percentage. So I could care more about defense percentage if I wanted to. I'm admittedly not super worried about my defense percentage. So I'm going to skip over that for now, and we're going to go to his armor. And then I'm going to go to another champion. I'm going to explain why. This is going to lead me into another point. It was my second point that I brought up earlier. So when it comes to his armor, as we can see here, I went with crit rate, crit damage. This was actually a piece of gear that I was saving for my Azor. So this piece of gear specifically just has a very nice HP roll and a very nice defensive roll. Now, as we can see right now with my parameters, it's saying nothing meets all 4 of my criteria. And that's because your bodysuit has a base stat, like a primary stat of HP. So at bare minimum, I need to deselect this HP because it's conflicting heavily with what I want. Now, ideally, I do want to go up to one of these, but we're kind of not really at that point yet. I'm not sure why I kept that with crit damage, but whatever. I kept a bunch with crit damage, apparently. Cool. So we have some stuff to sort out. I'm going to go to these Life Force sets, because right now that is what I'm rocking with. Yes, ideally, I do want to move up to these Warlord pieces, but I've already just found 2 that I want to instantly remove, so we will get back to them. So here, I have HP, defense, and then any other stat for me is fine. I don't even know what I would really want on Brokir specifically. I guess ideally I might want like Rage Regen, and as we see, nothing meets that criteria. Or attack speed, nothing meets that criteria. Bodysuits need to be ancient, mythic, like that glowing red, in order for the bodysuit to have attack speed on it. So for this reason, I am kind of confined to these 3 stats, and then just any other stat is going to help out Brokir no matter what it is. So again, what I want to focus on is this HP and defense first. So this first piece is already amazing. So we'll go ahead and start upgrading this. We have a decent roll here. I'm not upset about this because where I'm at in the game, mentally for me, I am not at a point where this middle rung, this, like, let's say this is like A, B, C, D. I'm sorry, it would be the opposite. So this would be F, D, C, B, A. Anything in the C tier is still a good piece of gear for me. I have not surpassed this block yet. If I wanted to be ultra efficient, yes, I might, skimp out on this. Because this rolled well, and I'm very curious because the defense bonus is right next, I am going to upgrade this to 8 because I think that is worth it for me. And again, it rolled really well. So I'm okay with this piece, especially for Broke here. So we're going to fully max this out because I'm excited with these two stats. And in terms of the video, this means I don't have to spend tons more time. So yeah, we're gonna change what stats he has here. Absolutely. So we lost some BP, and again, that's from the crit rate and the crit damage change. Us losing crit damage there was the big reason we lost BP, but that is still an upgrade for him. So my second point was, how do we get more focused on what gear we want for a champion? Broke here is a very good example of this. I know what my game plan is for him. I want HP and I want defense. I want nothing else on him. However, that is not true for all of my tanks. If I go down to Baron, Baron's actually a very good example of this, that in his skill set, we get a massive shield by stacking HP on him, but we also get, wait, where is it? Crap, where he gets an attack and defense bonus somewhere. When shielded by evil armor, increases his attack and defense by 15% each. And then because of this secondary skill that he has, his passive, attacks deal extra damage. They kind of do a secondary strike for him. So Wrath having extra attack is not a bad thing. Him also being a Nightmare means that he's in a more aggressive tank. Broke here, being a Northerner, is a more defensive tank. So these two tanks, even though they are both tanks, they do have wildly different roles in this game. A better comparison for me, or like for you the viewer, is that like Broke here and Olog, the two of these champions kind of fill the exact same role, right? They are both defenders. We don't care about their damage. They're just going to do their thing. But if I bring Nightmare out with like Wrath, per se, I do want Baron doing some damage. I want him to have a decent, respectable number. So my gear for him is going to look very different. So this HP defense bonus and attack speed, although this is good, and this would actually be a little bit better on my Azor, who I want to potentially make into a damage dealer, because he would benefit from that crit damage. For Baron, in terms of gear, his stats are going to be a little bit different, right? I care about HP and defense bonus because he is a tank, and I want him doing the most with those stats. However, I'm also okay with him having attack bonus percentage. And then if I really want him to do gear, I'm okay with things like attack speed or crit rate. And as we can see, I have like 8 weapons here with these 4 very specific stats. And then if I switch it to attack speed, I have another 8 weapons here. I highly doubt there's overlap, but there's... I guess there can't be overlap, actually, now that I think about it. Because if they have these 4, they wouldn't be able to have attack speed. But this is a very, very good example of... That's weird. Okay, never mind. I know what that's for. This is a very good example that for Baron specifically, how do I intend to build him up, right? If I want things like attack and HP and defense on him, you know, these 3 things we typically, in terms of gear sets, don't necessarily have the best relation for that. Now, me personally, I actually would like crit damage on Baron. His shield exploding from his HP is massive. So I value the crit damage here, or I'm sorry, the crit rate here quite a bit more. This is hilarious to see that I have Arrogance wearing this because the crit rate just rolled so high on it. This means that if I could potentially strip this off of Arrogance, or if I'm looking for some like big upgrades on my account, I could easily strip this away from Arrogance and give Arrogance a new weapon. We'll probably end up doing that. But for sake of argument, let's look around at some of our other gear here. So here, this is a great example of thing rolled, and it kind of rolled in that mid tier across everything. I don't know what character I would ever use this on. So this now becomes a sellable item for me. This is a great way for you to eliminate gear. If you do not have a very specific vision for, okay, I want Baron to have this shield, this can be a really good way for you to hard focus in on what you're doing. If you are worried about, well, what if I want to build up Gluttony? What if I want to build up Laurel at some point? Then worry about Laurel at that point. If you're not actively working on Laurel, you probably don't need to be worried about Laurel gear at this point. And even though you might have something that's perfect for Laurel, right? HP bonus, defense bonus, rage regen, and attack speed, which would be, to me, the perfect trifecta, or quadfecta? The quadruple for Laurel. The truth of the matter is, though, we're not, right? We're not. This piece of gear, right? I have a glowing red piece of gear. I want to take really good advantage of this. And it's glowing red, which means that the stats on it are going to be a little bit higher than the other. Oh. Was not expecting to see that. That's a lot more attack. Interesting. Wait, I thought these had higher stats. Maybe it's only when they're fully upgraded? Well, whatever. This one's glowing red, so I'm going to start off with this one. Because shiny has caught my eye. But this is also a very good example, right? I have a piece of gear, and I've been saving it for a while, and then it rolls like crap, right? 10%. I could stomach that, but I don't love it, right? These other three would have to roll very impressive for me to use this. So this is a very good example of, cool, by upgrading this just to level 4, I have determined whether or not this piece of gear is worth me saving now. And admittedly, that's not worth saving. I don't like that at all. So we're just going to go through here one by one in terms of my interest. So depending on what this was, right, if this was crit rate or if it was attack bonus first, I might skip out on the attack bonus because even though I want my Baron doing damage, it's not the most important thing. I care a lot more about his HP bonus and his defense bonus because when I'm using Baron, I want him for his tankiness, not for his damage. The way that I'm trying to build him, I want this to be an extra bonus for me of, cool, if I'm using Wrath, is this worth it for me to use Wrath? And here we're getting really good rolls. And that's another really weird thing in this game. I feel like if you start rolling well, the whole piece rolls well. I haven't really noticed me like rolling well, shitty, and then well again. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade this because I'm really excited. So here I was proven wrong. We did roll well, but I still would have rolled this up to 16 anyways, right? I would have been curious about this. And now this is a piece of gear where the only time that this piece of gear is ever going to be replaced is by an identical piece of gear that has better stats than these up here. And again, these three up here is what I care a lot more about. Would I like the attack bonus higher? Oh, absolutely. But this is a nice jump up compared to this mess on the wrong set specifically. And now I've given him the set bonus. This is a piece of gear that I also could improve upon. I could absolutely try rolling this up. And again, I don't care necessarily about the crit rate and attack bonus here. So if the crit rate rolled low, like a 10% here, I potentially might not care. Let's try this to 4 and see how it goes. If it rolls crappy, I know that I can just sell it right away. So right now it's a small upgrade, right? It did roll better, so 17% is respectable. And for the record, again, where I'm at in the game, this C tier is still very, very valuable for me. I would say for majority of players, except for your super endgame players, your C tier is still a very valuable tier in my opinion. However, if anything rolled to this F tier, so if this HP barely rolled here, I obviously would abandon this right away. So this rolled really low. I am not happy at all. However, I do need to compare it to the current piece that I have on him. And it's actually still better. So we get a better crit rate and a better HP bonus. I would rather have attack bonus than this flat defense. This flat defense of 193 is not amazing. The biggest issue here, though, is do I roll it up to 16? Because in my case here, I have to roll this to 16 to find out how comparable it is. I'm going to go ahead and chance it for this video because I feel like if I'm trying to work on Baron, which is a goal for me today, I would roll it up, and it rolled horribly. So this is up to you whether or not, like, which piece you think is better, right? Because I want my Baron to be a little bit more on the damaging side, this piece on the left is a little bit more appealing to me. However, I would be losing over 10% defense. So I'd be losing around 300 defense for the attack bonus of gaining 10% in attack bonus, which isn't super amazing. So I'm gonna have to decide on this later. I don't want to spend the video with me hard focused on this, but this is a very easy way for you to determine, oh, here's another piece of gear, right? I have my HP defense, attack bonus, crit rate. I was saving something like this for Baron because if I wanted my Baron to do a whole lot of damage, these are the stats I'm looking for. So there is a small reason that I could put Baron in Warlord. So that's why I did save these two pieces. The more I'm looking at them, though, I'm kind of realizing, no, I don't want... I highly doubt I'm ever going to build Baron full offensive. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these right away because that is the reason I was saving them, is specifically for Baron. But now we can see, now I'm just down to 4 pieces. So when it comes to me rolling gear, I can really see how things go, right? I could roll all these up to +4, and this now makes my money more valuable because I have a direct concept of, okay, hey, I want my Baron to be better. This rolling 18.5 and we're at 19.5, that makes this very comparable. It's still very usable. My issue here then is that I have to roll all the way down to 16 to see how the HP bonus rolls. And since those are my 2 most valuable stats that I want on my tanks, this is kind of creating a small blockade for me. So now I want to talk about Azor, because this is something I keep mentioning over and over again, and I've mentioned it a bunch of times with Gluttony. If I wanted my Azor here with crit rate, and then I want things like defense bonus, defense, and crit damage for him to be a damage dealing tank. So specifically, why do I mention this for Azor? Azor in his kit, where does it say it? It's in his talent tree. Damage scales off of his defense. When the Iron Hammer is in the heated state, attack has a 30% chance of inflicting the enemy with stun. So in this case specifically, I am thinking, okay, Azor is a nightmare, so he gains attack speed for the more nightmares summoned out, and then he deals damage based upon his defense. So for Azor, not that, I want gear. So for Azor, I probably want things like defense, crit rate, and crit damage. As we can see, I have not saved a whole lot of gear meeting that criteria. I am noticing crit damage only shows up on shining weapons. So weapons like this. So if you're ever wondering, hey, wait a second, how come none of my weapons have crit damage on it? Which is kind of mind-boggling to think about. They have to be glowing to have crit damage. So if you're ever trying to wonder what your luck chances are of getting certain gear, you might need to take... Hi, Sprinkles. You might need to take crit damage out of your calculations. So anyways, I specifically want on Azor, I want defense bonus and crit rate. And then ideally, if I actually wanted him to do the most damage, I would focus on more things like attack speed, and like maybe like flat defense. Oh, look, I do have some weapons that I saved for a damage dealer, crit damage percent plus 35%. If these potentially rolled well, I could use them. But he is also Azor. He is still a tank I want. So rather than this flat defense, I do think I would rather have HP bonus. Oh, look, I literally have items that meet this ridiculously specific criteria because I had a clear-cut mind of, hey, who would want defense bonus, HP bonus, attack speed with HP bonus and defense bonus? Oh, you know what? I want to build up a damaging Azure. Okay, let's see if this idea would pan out. And my first roll is terrible, right? So this lets me know right off the bat, cool, I can sell this. So not only have I spent the least amount of money, but I've also gained the least amount of points without screwing myself over a great deal. Now, for things like this where attack speed, obviously I want more rather than less, but the main stat I actually care most about here would be that defense percentage. This is something for you as the player to decide. So if you roll this up, and let's say we roll the lowest attack speed here, you might not roll it up at any further. In my case, it rolled really well at 65. That's amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and roll that up to 8 because now I want this defense bonus to roll really well. And it's in C tier. For me, where I'm at in the game, this is still okay. This is enough that I'm like, okay, I'm interested. And then a really low roll and crit rate. Not what I was hoping to see. But it is in that C tier for, again, for what I'm working with, for what my goals are, I am aiming for C tier and above. So although I don't love this, this has enough potential to me that I'm going to go ahead and roll for the HP bonus. And HP bonus also rolled into C tier. So unfortunately, not the best of rolls, but I actually am pretty happy with that. Like, all in all, so here I would compare pieces, right? So I get more HP bonus here. I do get more attack speed on this left one. Crit rate, this one rolled an 8%, whereas this one rolled a 13%. And then defense bonus 13, 17. So overall, this left one is a bit better. Cool. So now I have an item already equipped to him. So unless I absolutely love his damage, right? Like I would have to be head over heels for damage. I could potentially either roll this if I'm heavily working on Azure, or if I'm not working on Azure, I could sell something like this. This is where it gets up to you. Now, is Azure on the top of my list to work on? Absolutely not. He's not anywhere near the top of my list right now. So, I was able to work on my Broke here, and I was able to work on my Baron, and those were two big goals that I had for today. Once Baron becomes 6-star, he'll probably be a bit bigger than Olog, and probably a bit more used than Olog. But it's the same thing that over here for this Glacier set, I also would want to start focusing maybe some of these flat defenses out for attack percentage. Healing effect is not super valuable on him. And then this piece rolled horribly. But it's from the Glacier set, which is why I'm keeping it and keeping it on him, is that even though this rolled terrible, it's part of the Glacier set and it's completing the set bonus for me. This would be that easy, okay, I'm working on Baron. Okay, so specifically my Glacier set, and then it has to be a ring with HP bonus. You see how, like, the more targeted we're getting, the more and more difficult and complicated this becomes? This is a very easy way for you to determine whether or not you're keeping gear. If Baron is not on your radar for, like, your account, you're like, hey, I'm not working on Baron right now, I don't need a tank. This is a very easy way for you to stop keeping gear if you're not working on it. And definitely, I would encourage players, have a limit. Have an absolute limit where you're like, okay, when it comes to weapons that are HP, HP, defense, defense, I don't need more than 12, right? Like, I 100% don't need more than 12. This is where it would be okay for you to start rolling them up to these +4s. And if it's an important stat like HP bonus and it rolls poorly, we know we can just instant sell that. If it's like this and it rolls into the C tier, which again is for me, my bottom limit, I could keep this or I could sell this. And in all honesty, I'm probably going to sell it later today. Okay, let's talk on the flip side of things. because this is going to apply to the most amount of players, I think. If we're talking about offensive stats, right? How do we know what to keep and what to sell? Again, this 100% depends on the champion that you are building. Now, do I admit, does Salazar build the same way as Aracha? That builds the same way as Abomination? That builds the same way as Arrogance? Yes. Yes. A lot of these champions can heavily benefit from attack percentage, crit rate, crit damage, attack speed, and flat attack. Any combination of those 5, and that champion is benefiting. However, we do have some exceptions to this. We absolutely have champions like Cerberus, Vierna, Zealous, Osiren. We have quite a number of champions that have the restriction on them that attack speed has no bonus effect to the champion. So this can help out significantly with gear. If you have one of these champions, if you like them, if they are your favorite, or hey, maybe I do not care about attack speed on this champion. Maybe I care more about I just want raw damage stats. This can be, again, a very clear-cut way for you to really focus in on that. So in my case, I'm going to do crit rate, crit damage. Okay, I only have one piece of gear that meets that criteria. And then attack bonus. Okay, so I have no pieces of gear that meet that criteria. It is the crit damage here that's causing the most problem. Again, in order for me to have crit damage on a gear, it has to be this glowing variety. So let's say I do flat attack. Oh, but I'm on weapons, and again, weapons are flat attack as a primary. So by default, I always went to attack speed. Oh wait, Vierna doesn't need attack speed. See how easy it is to fall into this rut of, oh, we have limited stats that we can even get on our weapons. And 100% I did not realize until like this past week when I was talking to a whole bunch of viewers that crit damage can't be on a weapon unless it's glowing. Like, I was so mind blown re-looking through weapons and being like, oh, holy crap. I 100% never did pay attention to that. So when it comes to your weapons, for players like me who have avoided things like attack bonus, crit rate, and then like, let's say HP bonus, these pieces are 3 out of your 4 stats being very, very good. But as you can see, I've saved a lot more of the tank weapon that meet this criteria. But the truth of the matter is, crit rate and attack bonus on a weapon, those are your 2 main stats that you're going to get. You're really only hoping then for attack speed at that point. And then that's literally the holy trinity, because those are the only 3 you can get. Otherwise, you need the weapon to glow red so that you have the chance for crit damage to be in the mix, and you're obviously not guaranteed that. So, for Vierna specifically here, do we care about set bonuses like Warlord? Yes and no. So Warlord is obviously good on her because it gives her attack percentage. Calamity is good because it gives her attack percentage. And then Annihilating Might is crit damage bonus. So, by selecting this, I'm weeding out any set bonuses that I don't want for Vierna. And then here I can now look at, okay, what do I have? Attack bonus, attack speed, and crit rate. That makes this a very amazing weapon. Just unfortunately, not for Vierna. Vierna wouldn't necessarily be bad with more HP and defense. It's not what I want, right? I absolutely want that crit damage on her. But literally, if my choices are between attack speed, which does 0 for her, and HP and defense, which actually do something for her, guys, I would say that this decision's pretty clear here on what I need to give her out of these options. Now, again, I am going to look for things like crit rate or attack bonus being in this like first or second slot, because this will save me the most amount of gold and points. I'm going to start with the Warlord set because I think that for Vierna, since she applies dots, I care more about her base damage being higher. I'm also not 100% sure if dots in this game can crit. In most games, they cannot crit. In the Diablo series, they can. But in this game, if heals can't crit, I highly doubt that the dots can crit. So I'm going to lean more towards these attack percentages first. And likewise, if I roll this and this crit rate rolls in the F tier, I know that I absolutely don't want to spend any more gold on it. So we got a C tier roll, meaning it's just good enough that I need to consider it. Let's go ahead and roll it up to 12 just for the sake of the video. Admittedly, this piece of gear, I have other sets that I can put Vierna in, but we have a good defensive roll and a C tier roll for attack bonus. That makes this piece just interesting enough. I'm going to go ahead and roll it up again for video's sake. In all honesty, where I am with my Vierna. So again, C tier roll, just good enough to keep, but I obviously don't love the rolls of that. However, I now have a Warlord set piece with good crit rate and good attack bonus, which means that if I am focused on that Warlord set, oh, here we go. Attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage, and HP bonus. And it's glowing, so I absolutely love this. Let's go ahead and we're going to do the smart way of rolling it up. We're going to go ahead and roll +4. Excellent. So it rolled in B tier. That is setting a very, very good precedent, I guess. Ooh, we have very good luck today. I'm gonna keep building up the suspense. We're just gonna keep going stat by stat. So unfortunately, C tier in this crit damage kinda sucks, but it's still over 20%. So for me, this piece of gear is amazing. And again, I'm currently like, I need C tier and above benefits my account. So I have no problem committing to the full upgrade on this. And that rolled D tier. So B tier. So I have 3 Bs and a C. I am perfectly fine with that. And even better for my Vierna, this now gives her the set bonus. Even though she does not benefit from the attack speed, I don't care, guys. Because again, if I compare it to the Calamity set, Calamity only gives me 25% to attack bonus. This gives me both. So this now, although it's great on Vierna, what's nice about it is that it's flexible, that if for whatever reason I need to unequip Vierna and put this on Salazar, Salazar is still going to benefit from the attack bonus and the attack speed. So until they come out with a set bonus that's like plus 10% attack and like, let's say 20% crit damage, this is still the best option for Vierna at the moment. All right, so what if we're not talking about a champion like Vierna, and we are talking about a champion that would benefit off of things like that crit rate, attack speed, and attack bonus on an item? Oh, wow, I've actually saved a lot. But again, I really want to harp on the, well, what about the set bonus? Because Immortal Warrior, I hate to say this, besides Baron, who do I want these stats on that then give them HP and a defense bonus? It's obviously not going to be bad on champions like Salazar. But again, if I'm summoning out Salazar, I want him doing damage. I don't care necessarily how long he survives. I do to an extent. But right now there's no content where I need all of his damage really high, but then I also need his HP and defense high. This is strictly a Baron piece. So we're going to go ahead and deselect that. So again, we want, for my Salazar, what I'm looking at is things like Warlord, Calamity, Annihilating Might, and then I'm actually perfectly fine with Whirlwind on this set. The reason behind this is, with Salazar specifically, I have an on-hit effect on my basic attack, and this could apply to a lot of champions. So Aracha has a poison that she puts on hit, or every 4th attack she then throws out a web. So I have certain champions where the more frequently they attack, the better, but they also want as much damage as possible. Now, there are some weird exceptions to this. So things like Allura. she wants more crit rate and crit damage than she wants attack speed. But she still does benefit from attack speed. So she specifically, I might want her in the Whirlwind set, but ideally, I actually want more crit rate and crit damage on her. And she specifically has no on-hit effects besides just pure damage. So even though the attack speed does heavily help her specifically, and specifically the place that helps her the most is during her ultimate, is that it does give her an air of AoE damage here. As you can see, she's hitting all the other champions as well here. This video is not doing her ultimate justice at all. But that's the big reason that I would want attack speed even on her. But let's say somebody like Crake. Yes, we want attack speed on him because his attack speed is so slow. But the truth of the matter is we are fine with a crit rate, crit damage, and attack percentage on him. And he will operate perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and we'll throw those things back on. I do care more about crit rate, so I'm going to throw that on first. And then I'm going to restrict my gear access to the offensive sets. And here we can see I've already have a book that has these three on it. Absolutely love it. I already have a Warlord piece, but the crit rate rolled very poorly on it. Now I've kept it in case I do use it as a set bonus. And another good example is we had that one weapon I showed earlier that was part of the life set that rolled a 27% crit rate. If I roll a piece of armor like that, this sword instantly becomes usable, even though it's at a low crit rate. If a different piece of gear rolls excessive on crit rate, that's not necessarily terrible for me. And I could say that about any stat, right? If the attack bonus on this was like a 12 or 13, I could argue if the other stats rolled well, okay, I'll pick up the attack percentage somewhere else. But this is a very good condensed way for you to consider, okay, what do I want? So here, I could argue that because of the Warlord set, I care most about attack bonus and attack speed. So I should look for those two stats to be lower. But to be honest with you, the way that I rate gear is heavily based off their crit rate. If their crit rate is really low, I'm probably not going to roll them up much further. So we'll go with this first piece. And again, I do want the attack bonus to be at least over 10%. And we've rolled a B on it. Excellent. So now moment of truth. Because if the crit rate rolls terrible, I'm going to be massively uninterested. Ooh, literally what I was just about to say. If this rolls in that F tier, that 3.5, even though this rolled well, I hate to say this, guys, this F tier is kind of like you rolled a 0. I know that 3.5 is better than 0, but do I want to even chance rolling for this attack speed? Because now I have to roll it to 16, so that's a large gold investment. And then do I care about the flat HP? Not really. So this is a perfect example of our first stat rolled well. Now I do have things like hammers, right? They just introduced the hammer item. I could reset the rolls on this and then attempt to roll it again. But guys, this isn't glowing, right? I'm going to be that person. But since it is not glowing, I don't know why it does not show my books like this. Because it's not glowing, it is very, very difficult for me to... Oh, because this has no crit rate on it. This would be a better piece for me to re-roll with the hammer. Not this Warlord piece, right? I can much more easily farm for this Warlord piece. Again. But yes, this is a very good approach that I would encourage you guys to consider. Is if you feel like money is not an option on your account, like your gold, not money, your gold is no longer an option on your account, I would heavily encourage you that by rolling up in levels of 4, you can save yourself a lot of points on Tales of the Smith and better determine what is more valuable to you. This piece, I think, just has too much risk to it for me to upgrade. These both would have to roll B and above for me to keep this piece. and I potentially could keep it then. I know in my heart, though, 3.5%, that's so hard for me to deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and sell that right away. Here we have crit rate right off the bat, and then we have a defensive stat. So let's go ahead and mess around with this piece. Because again, if this rolls in the F or D tier, definitely not going to want to upgrade it. So it rolled in the C tier. I'm okay with that. And admittedly, if this defense rolls low, it is a lot less important to me. I would like it to roll C tier and above. But if it rolls low, it is the stat I don't care about, right? I'm also a firm believer that if one stat rolls badly, all the other stats have to be good. That I've been bitten by that so many times. We're going to go ahead and roll this up to 12 to see if the attack speed is worth it. So this rolled horribly, but the attack speed rolled respectfully. I'm okay with this. I'm going to go ahead and chance this up to 16 because I don't care about that very low defense. And I got bit. Literally what I was just saying. I've been bit from it before. This now turns this piece of gear from usable into I probably should sell it for what I'm working with. I'm going to hold on to it for now because the crit rate and attack speed is interesting enough that I might play with it on somebody. And then same thing too, if I get this this Warlord set, that is bringing me an extra 25% attack. So that's not horrendous, but it hurts. It absolutely hurts to read. Here, what if we have defenses are like the stat we don't care about is our first stat? This is up to you on how you evaluate these three. If you're really hoping for crit rate and attack speed, if those are the two main stats you're going for, I would say have this be one of the last things you roll, because in order for you to determine whether or not you want to keep it, you have to take it to 16, and that is a little bit rough. By just switching over here I get a much better idea that, oh, I can roll this to 4 and have a better idea if I'm going to keep or sell it, because if this crit rate, perfect. This crit rate rolled poorly, and again, I could, right? If these other three all rolled high, I could say, well, no, this is worth me keeping because 8% isn't horrific. We get that from Awakenings sometimes. I could use this. But is it worth it for me to upgrade to 16? No. If anything, I would upgrade this to 12 if that attack speed wasn't mid-C or higher, right? For me, it'd have to be C+ or above for me to keep it. And the truth of the matter is that that's not really worth my gold or my points at the moment. So I have no problem selling that. Here, we just saw this other book. We have attack bonus first. And again, I'm kind of okay with my attack bonus being lower. I care more about my attack speed and crit rate. But with them being so low, I'm going to move on to other pieces. Here, we have HP bonus. This is a lot more valuable than some of the other things we were running. This is really good. Attack bonus and crit rate right off the bat. So I'm going to see if the attack bonus, again, if it falls into this F or D tier. Yeah, this is going to be obscenely hard for me to keep. Now, out of curiosity, I am going to roll the crit rate. Because I think as newer players, I know this is an endgame focused concept that we're talking about. But this is perfect, right? I just rolled and both of these are in the D tier. I cannot stomach D tier right now. And even though it is 3 good stats on this, that makes this heartbreaking, yes, unfortunately, this just rolled poorly, so it's instant garbage for me. This is something good for you guys to consider on your account is, hey, what do I value? So here, all 3 of the main stats I care about are here in the lower brackets. So if all 3 of these rolled B or higher, I'm keeping it. And then if this defense bonus rolls horribly, again, I don't really care because I'm getting all the offensive stats out of it that I want. But equally, if this rolls F tier right off the bat, I would know not to keep it. I'd be like, oh, okay. Instantly don't have to worry about it. So this hurts, right? Because it rolled D tier. It's rolled a B tier and then a D tier. Not happy about it. Curiosity is taking hold of me, though, because 35 attack speed, again, I'm going to put out there, we get that from certain awakenings. Theowen and Idril get like 30 or 40 attack speed on their awakenings. I'd have to go look. So for me, if that is good enough to be an awakening, obviously it's not perfect, but where I'm at, I'm like, okay, this is below C, but if this crit rate rolled well, this piece would still be extremely usable. So if the crit rate rolls B, yes. Yes, yes, yes. This is where it would depend on you, the player, to determine, does this make sense? And because of that ridiculously high roll and crit rate, this now becomes a very usable piece for me. So even if the defense bonus rolled low, I'm still pretty happy with this. I do wish that attack speed was higher, but this crit rate, very impressive. And the attack bonus, impressive. So I'm okay with my weakest stat here being the attack speed. This piece is definitely going to push a character up further. All right, what about for body armor? What do body armors get from glowing? They get attack speed. So we have Soleil. Why are you wearing a very good piece? Crap. That's what I get for Faction Wars. So here we have crit rate, crit damage, attack speed, but no attack percentage. This is so unfortunate. I remember seeing this piece and was like all excited for it. And then this piece is just a whole mess that I wasn't sure what to do with it. I do kind of like it for somebody like Vortex. I still need to do a little bit more testing on how a healer could benefit from Rage Regen, because at the moment I don't think that they do. I need to do more testing to find out. So this piece of gear though, we have crit rate, crit damage, and attack speed on an offensive set. So even though I have no attack bonus here, again, I feel like I can make that up in my rings, bangles, and blah, blah, blah. So let's go ahead and give this thing some rolls. Because again, if this rolls anywhere below C tier, I know to just ditch it instantly. So it rolled C tier, so it's questionable. I'm going to go ahead and roll it up next. And guys, something I really want to stress for you, the viewer, you guys are going to have different goals than me. If you have just started accessing your red gear on your account, you might be perfectly fine with, oh, I just want crit rate and crit damage on anything. That would be amazing. I just want crit rate and attack speed on anything. That would be amazing. Absolutely, you can go by, having two stats. And if they rolled in the D tier, you still might say, it's still crit rate and attack speed on gear that I need on this champion. I'm okay with that. That is fine, right? You need to set up your own limits. For players that are much more advanced than me, what you need to gather from this is set yourself some limits. If you are at B tier and above for crit rate, don't settle for C. If you roll this and it's a C, these other three stats would have to be perfect for you. This barely rolled out of the C category. This is, from what I'm gathering, crit damage, that's probably 25% hits that bar. Because it's purple, I'm assuming that means that I'm technically in the B tier. That might be enough for more veteran players to be like, oh, this isn't worth it to me. But yes, look, now I rolled attack speed. So this piece of gear has amazing potential for me. And awesome. My HP bonus even rolled well. So if my lowest stat roll is a 16.5% on this, I am very happy. I have no problem with that for where I'm at in the game. I want to keep stressing that sentence is for where I'm at, that is part of my consideration. Pieces of gear like this, again, it's where I'm at in the game. This piece has amazing potential for me. So I'm going to go ahead and upgrade it. If this, very nice roll. If this rolled really low, if it rolled in that F tier, I would know to instantly sell it. Yes, yes, yes. Give me. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Come on, come on. Crit damage, be kind. Piece of shit. That's fine. 19.5 is actually still... Ironically enough, I was literally just thinking, if it's 20 or higher, I'm going to still be happy. 19.5 did me a little dirty. did me a little dirty, but I'm okay with that. Overall, very happy with some of these gear rolls. All right, last but not least, we're going to go over healers, right? Healers, what do we value on our healers? Guys, in all honesty, how many healers do you ever use in a match, right? So, Dolores is a support. Let's count her as a healer for the rest of this video. So that's one. Then we might have one other healer with her. Maybe two, right? Guys, how often are you running 2 HP healers side by side? Like, I absolutely get potentially running 2 attack healers, right? Like, if I had Nisande and Elowen, and those are my 2 healers, yeah, I could run them both together. I absolutely get that. When would you ever run 3 attack-based healers side by side? Or even 4, right? This is a perfect example of, do we need to hold on tons of attack-based healing gear onto our account if we're never planning on upgrading it? So for my Elowen here, yes, right? I have a whole lot of D tier stuff going on here. And here, I have a whole lot of D tier going on. So Elowen can absolutely be made significantly better. So we're going to go ahead and give her the Salvation set. I'm also going to look at the Calamity set and Warlord set, because all of these, if they do have healing effect, my Elowen, my Nisande, my Ezrein, my Hollow, all of these champions could benefit from healing effect. Now, for my healer specifically, I care about attack speed. Now, right now I'm on armor, so only one piece of gear is showing up that meets that criteria. Let's go ahead and switch over to weapons. For me, I care about my my healers having healing effect and attack speed more than anything. We are talking about attack-based healers at the moment, so my Elowen specifically. I want attack bonus. Cool, we are getting more and more simple here. And then ideally, for my Elowen, I do want more HP more than anything. Admittedly, though, I am okay with more defense. Oh, cool. Look, I've saved nothing that has these 4 specific stats on it. This also means that if I'm ever working on my Elowen, cool, I need to think more critically about what do I really want on my Elowen. Typically, HP is kind of the better way to go on more of our champions. But there's also a very big context of a lot of our healers actually have very low defense value. And if we don't want them dying to like stray bow and arrows or to a boss doing a giant swipe attack, defense does make their HP value a little bit more beneficial. Now, I would still argue HP is the ultimate damage reduction, so go with HP first. And you get a lot more HP from HP percentage than you do defense from defense percentage. However, the way that damage works in this game, it is a little goofy, so there is a good argument for defense, even when your defense number is lower. Anyways, let's go ahead. So, right now, she has a 20 on healing effect, and that is the singular and only redeeming quality of the current weapon that she has on. So, I, again, am still at the point where I want C tier and above. So if something rolls less than C tier, I do not keep it. Very not happy to start off this with that. Cool. All right. So at 8, we already rolled terribly. I can now just safely, like, even if these two rolled perfectly, I still would be very unhappy with these two. So we are, man, I am misclicking all over the place. No! No one saw that. So here, we have HP bonus first. How much do I care about HP bonus? So for me, I do still want it C. I would be okay if it hits a high D, but admittedly, again, where my focus is today, is C tier and above on everything. I absolutely fuck. Cobb, you jinxed me. Now, there is the small potential. What if everything else rolls really, really well on this, right? I hate to say this, guys. Not everything's going to roll really well on this. If the first roll is terrible, prove me fucking wrong, game. Nope. Excellent. So I don't feel bad about selling this at all. But this is a very good way for you to hyper-focus on, hey, what am I working on? What do I need to be paying attention to? And in my case, Elowen, is she dying a lot? Is she not healing enough? When you're collecting gear on your account, start paying attention to stuff like this and seeing, hey, what stats do I care most about? Am I okay with flat HP? The last point I want to touch on in this video is the gear raids. I mentioned this at the very beginning of the video, and it was my first point, and I'm going to circle all the way back around to it. When it comes to our gear raids, I would argue for most newer players, Gear Raid 1 is going to be one of the harder ones to complete, although they did recently revamp it. It is no longer the mage-centric content we thought it was. It is now just all AoE. If we go into Gear Raid 1 real quick, my champions are not... My champions for Gear Raid 1 are currently not geared up. I was working on arena stuff, so some of my best gear got moved off of some of the champions in here. But if we go to the monster manual, this is something I've had a lot of players tell me, oh crap, I don't look at that as much as I should. Here we can see that the defense and MR are equal. Defense and MR equal. Defense and MR equal. Here, magic resistance slightly lower. The Scourge is the single exception in this. Defense and MR equal. Defense and MR equal. Defense and MR equal. Defense and MR equal. Finally, defense and MR are equal. So they have kind of switched this content to just being AoE damage above all else, which I do think is a very good, healthy change. It has taken away a little bit of the mage's identity, in my opinion. However, I'm sure that they're going to come out with a new gear raid that is also weapons and armor in the future. I have no idea when. I have had no hints, or no one from Moonton has talked to me about it. It's just, it is inevitable, right? We have currently 3 gear raids, and the game is doing really well. It would be a very smart decision of them to have 2 gear raids for your accessories, and then 2 gear raids for your weapons and armor. The thing that I want to stress more than anything for Gear Raid 1 that I think makes this a little bit of the most new player friendly is that if you can work on your AoE champions and them doing a whole lot of damage, so your AoE champions and champions that either buff or debuff that lets your AoE champions do more damage, there is a massive, massive advantage to you trying to collect certain gear sets here, because number one, we have less gear sets here, right? So we have 5 gear sets from us to pick from. 3 of them are offensive, 1 is defensive, and then 1 is for healers. So this already gives you a much bigger advantage for you getting a gear set that you want. And then specifically, if it's one of these red, like these, I don't even know what to call these, like these elite gear sets, right? We now have a 1 in 2 chance of getting like the offensive stats on the thing that we want. Even if it is on the wrong set, again, HP and defense bonus, that's not necessarily going to be bad on your champion. And some of the base stats, like that was like 296 base versus the 200 base here. That's kind of a huge jump up. I'm really excited to see how those things are going to roll and how much more impressive they're going to be. But the huge thing when it comes to gear raids, why I'm going to start encouraging players to focus on their Gear Raid 1 above all else is extremely simple. When we go for our weapons have to have a primary stat, right? They have to be attack. We have no other option there. When we come to our rings, our bangles, our amulets, notice that we have the whole fucking wall. So the chances of us getting a usable piece of gear from here, just in base, right? If we're just talking about that primary, it is a 2, and then at most, it is a 3. In this case, Bengals can have crit rate. Amulets can have attack speed. And then rings, I don't know anybody who's going to be playing with Rage Regen, but they technically can have Rage Regen. You have a 2 to a 3 in 11 chance to get just the primary stat that you want. Right? So think about that percentage. Then the moment that we are talking about... Oh, I was clicked on the wrong thing anyways. So we have a... I'm sorry. So it's a 2 in 9 chance to get what we want. And then at best, it's a 3 in 9 chance to get what we want. So then, once we talk about that, then for us to get the substats that we want, right? So if we want attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage... As you can see, I have 6 pieces of gear that meet this very specific criteria. And I have nothing that meets all of this criteria. Understand it's going to be much, much more difficult. It's going to require a whole lot more grinding to get these stats over here. But over here in weapons, right? Like, I know that I can't have crit damage unless it's a glowing thing. But look at how many pieces of gear that I have that instantly meet this requirement of 3 very offensive stats. And then if I go into the body armor, and again, the body armor can't have attack speed unless it's glowing. So let's replace attack speed with crit damage. Holy crap, I have over 20 pieces of gear that meet this very offensive trifecta worth of stats. What I would encourage you guys to think of, so this works for veteran players and this works for newer players transitioning into red gear. It is going to be, in terms of getting a power spike, in order for you to get the bonus from a 2-piece set is a whole lot easier than a 3-piece set. And then for you to get 2 to 3 good sub-rolls on a 2-set bonus is going to be very easy compared to doing it over on the 3-piece. I will say, I'm going to be very honest with you, that coming over here to the these 3 pieces, you are going to notice a lot more the impact of equipping a good piece over here. Probably well over compared to the other half. However, for newer players, I would argue because your basics, your primary stat here is set to be attack, and your armor is set to be HP, it eliminates so many variables that gives you a much higher, easier and consistency route to get better gear. Now, does this mean that I think every player should hard focus Gear Raid 1? Absolutely not. If you have the right champions for it, and again, this game is super dependent on which champions you have and how you make the most of them. Allura would probably not be great in Gear Raid 1. However, she does technically have some AoE, and if I build her up properly, she could potentially put some hurt on Gear Raid 1 with the changes that they made to it. Prior to the changes that they made on it, would I bring Allura into Gear Raid 1? Absolutely not. She would be an absolute pipe dream to bring into Gear Raid 1. Even things that I have that are very good. So I have things like Vierna. I have things like Zealous, and more importantly, I have Zealous with his book, his Graveyard Opus, and I even have a second copy of his Graveyard Opus. So if I upgrade this book, I could upgrade it again and give myself a much easier time pushing my Gear Raid 1 even further. With this being said, do I have any plans to work on Zealous? Not at the moment. I kind of have too many other legendaries that I'm working on. And even though Zealous would be great in my Gear Raid 1 team, I actually don't have the slot for him. I would have to remove somebody else like Ajax, like Vierna, like Comet. And for anybody who knows what those kits are, you know how ridiculous of an ask that is. More importantly, Ajax, Vierna, and Comet all have maxed out skills, making Zealous that much further down on the rung of, okay, do I want to work on him for this anti-healing only during his ultimate, and he's got a high base cost, right? Things are getting real complicated real fast. There is some wiggle room. There are certain champions I could potentially remove. I just need to really zero in on how I want to beat the level and what I think is the most effective way to beat it. But yes, guys, I hope this video helped you. Let's give you a quick summary, because I know that I tend to be a little bit scatterbrained as I'm rambling on and on. First things first, what I would recommend to any player who is collecting gear for your champions, as you collect gear for your champions, have a very specific champion in mind that you are collecting gear for. It is perfectly fine for you to say, okay, right now I'm working on my marksman. So anything, like, you know, a lot of the marksmen do build the same way. They want the crit rate, crit damage, and attack speed. That is fine to have that generalization. However, you know, Brienne technically does not scale nearly as well off of attack speed as Idril does. So understand that the two of them, Brienne actually kind of falls into that same category as like Zealous and Vierna, where I could build her just full attack percentage, crit rate, and crit damage, and Brienne's going to perform amazingly without any attack speed. The attack speed only helps Brienne on her A1, and for anybody who tries to argue with me, well, what about her split shot? Her split shot is on a timer. It's every 6 seconds. So it actually has nothing to do with her attack speed. So yes, on her A1, we are pumping out more damage, and that is valuable. So it's not that Brienne gets zero benefit from attack speed. But the truth of the matter is she needs more crit rate and crit damage. So have a specific champion in mind. If you are trying to build up your Brienne, you know, instead of your Idril, let's say you're doing a challenge run and you're like, hey, I'm not trying to build up Idril or Razak at the moment. I'm trying to play with these very little played champions like Brienne, like Brunor. These are very good examples of, okay, you might not focus on attack speed for them. That means gear that is crit rate, crit damage, and attack percentage now suddenly becomes a lot more valuable to you. That would also go for any other champions you're working on, right? So if you're talking about your tanks, yes, a lot of these tanks all share the very same attribute of more HP, more defense, more good. But yes, if you're working on your Muriel does want healing effect on her. So any of those tank stats with healing effect, if you are planning to work on your Muriel, or if you like Muriel, yes, you want to save those. But if you don't have Constance on your account, if you don't have Muriel on your account, should you be saving tank gear with healing effect on it? No, because you're never going to upgrade it. It's just going to take up artifact slots. So, number one, have a very specific champion in mind as you are collecting gear. And I would heavily argue, if you are not actively working on Aveline and you don't have intentions of 6-starring her this weekend or next weekend, you probably don't need to be saving gear for her. You can absolutely refarm up gear. And I will also stress, you're probably not getting that A and B tier gear anyways. Like if you're saving it and you're like, oh, the longer I save it, the better it's get. No, it's not. This is not one of those games that the longer you sit on it like a Magikarp, all of a sudden it gets better and better. Number two, a big point that I want to bring up is make sure that you have a defined limit for what you're trying to do with your gear. So for me, I was working on Olog having as much HP bonus as possible. This is a very good example that for when I'm trying to use Olog, these rolls are not amazing. This gear could easily be significantly upgraded. And by giving him stuff that is higher C tier or B tier gear would be a big boost for him. Now again, if I'm not actively working on Olog, do I need to save a whole bunch of HP defense gear? Not really. But it might be worth it. Hey, maybe you say, okay, I'll save 5. Bam, I'll lock it into place. So there's my 5 from this Life Force set that I'm saving for Olog. After 5, you know, what weekend are you really going to roll 10 pieces of gear just for Olog? Probably never, unless you are specifically working on your Olog. And trust me, if you're specifically working on your Olog, you're absolutely going to be saving every piece of gear that is HP bonus, defense bonus, and then I would assume extra HP. I can't imagine what else you would really want on Olog. Definitely HP, defense on Olog. And then last but not least, if I'm looking for an immediate upgrade to my characters, should I focus on Gear Raid 1 or 3? This really depends on what your immediate goals are. If you're looking for a gear set bonus, because a lot of these are pretty impressive, a lot of them are a 25% increase to stats. Even the healing effect ones are, you know, impressively 25 to healing effect. And then all the offensive ones are about a 25 to 35% increase on stats, right? So with this being said, make sure that you have a good idea of, okay, this is what I'm going for. Okay, that's too embarrassing. That cannot stay up on screen. But yes, right? This is where you can get some good immediate increases. These good immediate increases, I would also argue, if you're struggling with Gear Raids 2 and 3, they could be strategy. They also could be gear checks as well. If you feel like you have the right champions, but they're not doing enough damage, I would argue reevaluate potentially some of the gear that you're using and be okay with a piece of gear like this that I'm showing on the left, where it is attack bonus and crit rate, both in this, one in C tier, one in B tier. So good rolls. And then flat attack, this is still an extra 202 damage. It's not... What's funny is that the way that we just started off this video, this flat attack would have set the mood very sour for this piece of gear. This is a very good example that gear can roll well, just understand the associated risk with it. Me being at... I started off this video at like 50 million or 55 million. We're down to 49 million. I am not struggling for gold. If you as a player, if you're brand new to Red Gear, 10 million gold is a good weekend goal. Have 10 million before any Tales of the Smith, and you will feel like you are not struggling with Tales of the Smith. And as you can see, the gear that we've upgraded, I am already at 4,600 points, so I can really only upgrade another 2,000. I'm going to go a little crazy this weekend. I'm probably going to go up to about 10,000 points because I'm trying to eliminate a lot of gear off my account. So if I upgrade like 2 of my tanks into really good gear, that means I no longer need tank gear for a while. Like I want to have 2, maybe 3 tanks geared up. And then all other tank gear is going to be useless. Because when do I need more than 3 tanks? The answer is never. Right? I have not found a level that I specifically want more than 3 tanks. There is a small argument for Gear Raid 2 that I could maybe want 4 tanks. I will cross that 4 tank bridge when I get to that 4 tank bridge. And then like same thing too, if I want to really mess around with my Titus or my Azor, because I plan to make them damage dealing tanks. Our Death could even fit in this category of he could be a damage dealing tank. Because of the way that his ultimate works. And specifically my Ardeth, I do have him awakened to 5. So with him specifically, I could absolutely mess around and find out with him. And what's nice is that his damage does scale off of his max HP. So ladies and gentlemen, I know that this was a very long video. For those of you who have stayed to the end and kept watching, thank you very much. You are amazing. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. It helps me out tremendously. I know that I've sometimes inconsistently uploaded. I do have some health concerns going on this week, so that is partial the reason why I'm very behind. Some of it is also, I thought I uploaded videos, and I did not, so apparently I took off for a week. A lot of the videos will be coming out this week instead, and I will try to get a little bit more consistent on which days I put them out. I might start to go to every other day, because that will just be less stressful on me. So I might do like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for videos going forward from this video. Guys, if you want to join us over at twitch.tv, we are twitch.tv/sprinklebeard, and I stream every day, Sunday through Wednesday, semi-reliably. Thank you guys very much for watching, but of course, until that next time, ta-ta.